Hey, if you're watching this on YouTube, this is the weekly Misery Loves Company reading series hosted by miserytourism.com. Every week we have new work read by outsider and transgressive artists. Yeah, fuck it. I'm hugely sleep deprived. I'm just gonna kind of wing it here. First up to read this week tonight is Derek. And I'll be putting links to the pieces that are being read in the chat and posting them on Twitter as well. Now, Derek, this is a piece we actually published earlier this week as part of our regime change theme, right?
Yep, and this is the first time I wrote something specific for a theme. When you guys put out these themes and you had regime change, I could only think of stepfathers. So,
Yeah, I really, when Rudy and I read it, we were like, holy shit, like the whole stepfather as regime change thing, like it's one of those things that makes perfect intuitive sense in retrospect, you know? Anyway, it's all yours.
all right, thanks. So this is pontoon boat is in the front yard. Get this out of the way. I did put a cigarette out on your mother's arm Thanksgiving weekend 2013. Yes, I fucked Renee, the girl working the snack shack at the ball field, used to give you free lollipops when you was in coach pitch. And no, I didn't ever get around to getting the boat out of the front yard. I was fixing to work on it. She told you all this shit and said that's why y'all left and we couldn't see each other last 5 years. Well, it's bullshit, and you're 16, which makes you a man now, so you got a right to know the truth. I feel terrible every time I think about you having to live with Craig, that asshole. Your mom's a slut. I just have to throw that out there. This isn't going to be easy for either one of us, but we're ripping the Band-Aid off, son. Ask her about Reynolds High under the bleachers, Tommy Atlas. See if she doesn't squirm a little. We've been steady 3 months, exclusive. That's just one time is all I'm saying. I'm not going to waste my computer hour running down your mom's dirty sex life. Maybe over some beer sometime. I'd like that a lot, you know. She lies to you constantly. 5 minutes before I stubbed that butt on her arm, she threw a full glass with ice of her fucking tequila sunrise at me, square in the face. My eyes were burning. Renee was not my goddamn cousin. She knew my cousin or had slept with her or something or other, but we were not related. I was neither a party nor present at any such encounters. I refuse to speak ill of your mother, though, or disrespect her. The fat fucking room, as they say, is Craig. Craig's why you can't visit here. And Craig's got your mom all out of sorts, lying and pinching pills again, I'm sure. I'm going to educate you about this Craig you got lording over you now. I've known that cum rag since 8th grade. Not a damn thing he'd done or put his little pecker in I don't know about. Ask him about getting thrown in Russell's Pond. Ask him if we didn't sit on the bank and watch his little hand slapping at the water, hollering for his big sister, trying to doggy paddle back to the shore like a little bitch. Matter of fact, ask him where that same big sister was homecoming night 97. See if my truck wasn't fogged the fuck up. There's 100 Craigs. They all got sisters. And I'd forget every goddamn one of them if this one hadn't shown up at your arm's parlor talking about, do you do men's cuts? See, thing is, he had the dumb fucking luck to pick that day. Any other day, she'd slap his ass on sight for carrying on like he had a pair. But, well, you remember that day. She had every right to be pissed. I won't shit you. I do not recall the order of operations here. But the glass on that aquarium did give way. From a hairline crack that had been there for months or some sudden impact, I do not know, hand to God. But your mom walking down the stairs all made up for work, seeing me out cold on the couch, sleeping one off and stepping on a puffer, ruining those heels with the salt water, I do not begrudge her anger. Slap at me, spit on me, tickle Craig's cock in the back after you blow dry fat fuck's little mane, but the rest of this shit is completely unnecessary. So tell me how the cops show up, and all of a sudden she's giving out tours of the basement that she swears she's never once in her life even set foot in, at least not since we first signed the lease officer. And oh my, what is all this? Maybe my boy has a science fair coming up at school? I have deleted some words about your mother which are unkind. but I trust you understand my position. And to hear Janice tell it, she waited, what was it, 3 days? 3 days, and Craig's shit-stained Hanes probably hanging out to dry over the couch, and you poor boy, you got to sit there and watch this travesty unfold. Change of the guard, they call it. Well, I just want you to know I love you. And as far as I recall, and up to and including the information I have since gathered, that boat wasn't checked one time. And I bet if you found yourself with a few spare minutes, you could easily make your way to the back right bench and lift that up, find a little Colt 45 fully loaded. And once those responding officers hear about the abuse, I'm talking sexual, mental, emotional, that Craig has been putting you through, well, I can't see how they don't label this an open and shut case of self-defense from trauma inflicted. And I swear to you, son, on Dana's grave, if you'll just do what's right, and in 26 months, when this time here is paid, we can get back to being family.
God, I love how that ends. Also, the children's artwork in the back there really adds something to this to this piece. No, I love. Well, obviously, I love that piece because we fucking published it. But I love the arc of that piece. You know, and I know Rudy really dug. I'll let Rudy talk for himself, but I know he really dug the like voice as usual. Like your unreliable narrators are fantastic, but I also really like the way that like the journey that piece goes on because it's so the way you like so carefully and subtly arrive at that really like nefarious and dark conclusion is it's so good.
Yeah, I love
Thank
this
you.
piece. The way the narrator like twists back on their words, like I'm not gonna disrespect your mom, but at the same time, like here's a laundry list of your mom's like sexual exploits and problems that I had with her, and just the way this like I told you this before in the email, but like the way it sounds, the dialect like literally just sounds like shit that I've read or maybe heard spoken to me like just in person. I'm from a small town, and it's perfectly captures the way we talk here. I guess I don't know. Like I said, it reminds me of something like you'd read on Topics, basically, like North Country Topics or something.
That's awesome. Thank you. Yeah, I would argue that this is my most reliable narrator in some ways. In that, to me, he feels entirely predictable, very easy to kind of understand in a way. Like not necessarily likable,
yeah.
but he's yeah. I mean, he's
Yeah.
transparent, and once you've known one person like this in your life, you kind of known them all.
Yeah.
I knew like 5 of that guy in high school, or at least like they're for that guy.
I don't know. I love like it does really perfectly capture that guy who thinks he's devious, right? Who thinks he's the smartest man in the room, but he's actually a massive fucking idiot, And yeah, no, that it just great stuff. Tyler, you're up next. If you're with us still.
Yeah, I'm with you. I just no, it's going right up. Okay, let me get this paste bin out to you real quick so you can put a link.
Oh yeah. And I won't tweet out the link since it's going up on the website next week. Yeah, Tyler's going to read a piece that will be going up on Misery Tourism, I think probably next Monday, if all else fails, next Tuesday.
All right, does that link work? Yeah, it does.
Potentially
Okay.
offensive content ahead. Yeah, it works perfectly.
Okay, so yeah, like William said, I'm gonna this one's gonna be published in next week, and this is called Neurotic. They were in bed together. He was already totally naked, and all she had on was a bra. They were side by side kissing ferociously, and he had his arm hooked around her neck and shoulders the way you would hook an arm around a life preserver. She felt his urgency and she liked it. She snaked one hand behind his hip to draw him in closer. His hard cock pressed against her belly, steely and unyielding. She gasped a bit in the back of her mouth, pouring a moan into his, and she took his other hand and guided it down between her legs. He pressed his flat hand against her crotch and felt the heat in his palm. Her hips bucked up to meet him. He crooked his middle finger just slightly and drew the fingertips softly along the part of her labia. He crooked the finger further and slipped inside. She bit into his collarbone in response. He broke the kiss, unhooked his arm, and leaned over behind him over the side of the bed. "What are you doing?" she asked him. He fished a condom out of his pants, holding it up to her, shaking it. "No, that's okay," she told him. His face fell. "You don't want to?" he asked. "No, I do," she assured him. "You don't have to wear it, is what I'm saying." "Okay," he said, bemused. He'd worn a condom on the 2 previous occasions he'd had sex. He began to tear the foil open. "Hey, I said you didn't have to," she said. "I got a Mirena. I told you, it's fine." "Okay, that's cool," he said. "I'm still gonna, though." "Okay," she said carefully. "Any reason in particular?" "I'd just really be more comfortable with one on," he said. "Don't you think it feels better with that one on?" she asked. "Oh, absolutely," he answered. "I'm just not, you know." "What?" she asked. "Oh, I'm just not." He pursed his lips before speaking. "Just not comfortable with that yet." She laughed a bit awkwardly. "Afraid I might have cooties?" "Nothing to do with you," he said firmly. "I'm just kind of neurotic about things like that, is all. Always have been. Don't worry about it." He drew her in closer, planted a few soft kisses along her jawline to assure everyone that the mood wasn't ruined. She reciprocated, ran her hands along his sides approvingly. She wasn't quite done talking yet. With affected breeziness, she said, "Most guys are pretty eager to not wear a condom." "That's your personal experience?" he asked. "Yeah, that's my personal experience," she said, annoyed at the implication. "Well, that's kind of why," he started, but thought better of it. "What?" she asked. "Nothing," he said. "No, what?" she demanded. "I'm just, like," he struggled with words. "Look, I'm just an over-anxious person. I like to be careful. Don't take it so personally. Why do you care so much?" "You saying I'm not careful?" she asked. "I don't want to get into it," he said. "Like, try not to make a big deal out of it. It's you that's making a big deal about it. What difference does it make if I want to wear one or not?" "I'm not making a big deal about it either," she said. "I just want you to want to know why you're apparently afraid to not wear one. Like, I told you I was clean. I told you I was on birth control. What's the holdup? Do you, like, not believe me? Am I scheming to get you in a baby trap? We're adults. We can talk about this. What exactly do you think might be happening?" "I have no idea what might be happening," he insisted. "Neither do you. We still don't know each other that well. Like, I have never had a dude insist on wearing a condom, even though I told him he didn't have to," she said. "Never even heard of it." "I've never had a girl get upset at me for wanting to be responsible," he said. "Okay, then." She got out of his bed and reached for his underwear. "If you're that responsible, you'd be better off just avoiding the risk of fucking me altogether. I mean, I'm not responsible enough. Who knows what might happen?" Hey, he said. "I don't think that." That moment, the alien crafts in the sky began their attack. Their molecular disruptor beams dragged across the city, chewing up the streets and lawns and cars and people with a huge bar of glowing energy that neatly dissected the fourplex she lived in. Heat seared the bedroom and vaporized the far wall. The lower part of the house fell in and the room collapsed from underneath. The bed ended up in a smoking pit, buried under half-disintegrated beams, bricks, and furniture. The focused core of the beam had raked across her and she had died instantly. Her torso was half gone, bubbled and melted like a spent candle stump. He had gotten a more peripheral exposure, and his body was still intact, but with severe burns covering most of it. He was now suffering from severe shock and fluid loss, and on top of that was trapped beneath nearly a ton of rubble. He trembled and gasped and grabbed the charred stump of human meat beside him. His brain was mute, scrambled, afire from pain and panic, operating on gut-level animal frequencies. He died 10 minutes later without ever figuring out what had happened.
Wow. I I I think I'm trying not to repeat what I said in the acceptance email, but I probably will end up like repeating myself anyway. What I really love about this piece and also the piece, I think it was called Red Mass, that we published last year, is like, I'm generally someone who's like innately pretty hostile to like twists in literature and twist endings. Like, I think like in a current set, Owl Creek Bridge is like one of the most overrated like short stories in the canon, right? But what really makes the twists in your story work is how utterly and completely plausible everything that comes before them is. Like how like meticulously detailed the human interactions are, how like in this case the human interactions, or in like Red Mass, how like just the meticulous detail on how like the horse's body was decomposing in the swamp, and all of that like adds something to the twist when it comes and makes it actually resonate and makes it actually feel like it's reflective of the honest absurdity of human life and not like something contrived, if that makes sense.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for your input there. I didn't set out to be like a twist guy. That's just how shit just keeps playing out. You know, what really inspired this story is I thought of the ending first. It was like, I love disaster movies myself. I love shit getting destroyed. I love in a movie whenever large scale destruction happens. It's one of my guilty pleasures. Like, I've watched every disaster porn movie you can think of. And I have this weird thought when I'm watching them often. Like, whenever a building gets crushed, I have this thought that's like, there's somebody in there who's arguing over something really fucking stupid. And that's the last thing they're ever going to do.
That's
Right,
what I like.
yeah, absolutely. And so often those movies like miss that mundane shit. And that mundane stuff is like, at least to me anyway, and maybe I'm just fucked up, I am, but like to me anyway, that mundane shit is like so much more interesting than like, you know, the president coming on television in Independence Day and I'm gonna fly the aircraft into the, who cares? Like, who cares about that shit? That shit doesn't feel real to me. But I mean, maybe this just hit a little too close to home, since I'm
I
like,
want to see what some janitor's doing when all that
Yeah,
shit
right.
happens.
Yeah, and I love the idea of like someone's last moments of life just being completely consumed by the most banal, stupid fucking shit, you know? Yeah.
One thing I like about this, I'm not sure if it was your intention, maybe it's just a strange thought I was having, is that like the idea of like the aliens arriving being kind of like in the guy's mind connected to the fact that he didn't get to put on a condom or that kind of thing. It's that kind of OCD neurosis where it's like, you know, these things are connected but they're not, you know, in somebody's mind, and that just makes the end even more perfect. I love it.
Thanks.
That's one of the things that I loved about it, is that, you know, you said you didn't set out to be, you know, like do a twist or whatever. Is I don't even view that as a twist necessarily. It's just the intersection of two completely unrelated events. You know, like shit happens in the world. Like you're going on your track, like one thing's happening. You know, his biggest concern is if he's going to get pussy or not. And then something completely unrelated happens, but those two stories connect. It's, you know, it's not a twist, it's an intersection. And that's what I find really interesting about that piece.
Absolutely. Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. Next up is Griffin. And Griffin is,
All right.
hey, you're also going to be reading a piece we published. I swear to God, I did not set out today to have this just be shit that we've published or will be publishing, but that's how it turned out. So this is a piece we published, I think actually Tuesday. I think we published this the day after we published Derek's piece. So cool. Take it away.
All right. She stands before the black stone, the sun god, Ilaha Gabal. The music starts, pipes and drums and cymbals. She dances, spinning clockwise, kicking up her heels and leaping into the air. At the altar, the priest takes a fresh sharpened dagger and opens the bull's throat. The sun beats down. She dances, and she can feel her god smile. She's the son of the last true emperor. Her mother tells her this every night to remind her of her birthright. Her grandmother tells it to everyone who will listen. They meet in secret with generals and governors. She is still only a boy and is not welcome. She does not learn that she will be named emperor until the night before. In the morning, sunrise at her back, she faces her legions, and they hail her name. Her armies meet the pretenders at a village some 20 miles from Antioch. The enemy gains the upper hand, but her mother and grandmother rally the troops, and the pretender is defeated. He flees to Chalcedon, and thence to Cappadocia. His son is sent to ask the Parthians for aid. Both are captured on the road and executed. She rides into the city as emperor, and none dare oppose her. She does not arrive in Rome until the first year of her reign is almost over. Her chariot is drawn by 12 white horses. Behind her and above her sits the black stone, the sun god, Ilahagabal. She dresses not as an emperor in purple toga and laurel wreath, but as high priest, her first and most important office, red robes and a peaked cap bedecked in gold and jewels. It does not please the senators nor the people, but it pleases her God, and it pleases her. She has 3 wives. She loves none of them. She has a husband, too, though few recognize their union. She loves him with all her heart. In the palace, when they are safe from prying eyes, she wears dresses and paints her face, and he calls her wife, mistress, queen. She has other lovers, noblemen and gladiators, soldiers and slaves, but she always comes back to her king. On the Palatine, she has a temple built, higher than the temple of Jupiter Optimus Maximus. At its center is the black stone, the sun god, Ilahagabal, and on holy days she dances around it as she did back in Syria. She has the other gods' relics brought there, Vesta's flame, Kybele's stone, Minerva's idol, so that none can be worshipped without also worshipping the god's new king. At the solstice, when her god is strongest, she leads him through the streets, walking before his chariot and singing hymns of exultation. She sends messengers to each corner of her empire, searching for a physician who can make her into a woman in truth. Some respond if she has them demonstrate their technique on slaves, but they are butchers all, and the slaves that survive have nothing between their legs but scars and regret. One night, out of her mind after the latest failure, she almost does it herself with a dagger. Her king catches her before she makes the cut and holds her until dawn. Her grandmother is plotting against her. She is forced to adopt her cousin and name him heir. He shares the consulship with her. She grows to hate him. The Senate will not let her retract his adoption, so she turns to assassins. None of them return. Perhaps they failed, perhaps they took her money and ran. She tells whoever will listen that he is near death. Her soldiers almost riot, and they call for her cousin to be brought to them. She brings out her cousin and her mother. It is the last mistake she will ever make. The soldiers ignore her and shout his name. She calls for the traitors to be executed, and they cheer louder. Some draw their swords and approach. She turns to flee. A soldier grabs her by the hair, another holds his sword to her throat. Before her beheading, she looks up and sees her grandmother's smile. It is not a kind smile. Her head falls to the ground. In her final moments of consciousness, before the blood drains out and her brain dies, she prays. She prays that her king will escape Rome. She prays that her mother will have a quick death. She prays that her name will be remembered. She opens her eyes one last time, and all she can see is light, the light of the black stone, the sun god, Ilahagabal.
That is so fucking good. I oh my god. I remember when you submitted this to us, I was in fucking awe. I remember sending a message to Rudy over Skype. I was like, holy fucking shit, this is so good. I think what I really, really like about it is the like immense scope of the piece. Like you have like an entire reign, right? Like her entire reign. Granted, it was brief, but her entire reign as
It's
emperor.
like 4 years, I think.
Short paragraph. And the management of details and the like when it comes to historical fiction, right? This could have been a Wikipedia entry, and it could have been like some like insufferable like tome, right? But what you do here like transcends both of those options, and you have something that's a really like fantastically moving piece of short historical fiction crafted from a real life, and like I said, just like the precise choice of what details do you emphasize? How do you craft these sentences? It's just fantastic. I'm rambling, but it's fucking fantastic.
Hell yeah.
And I just want to say respect for the leftover crack shirt in light of Alex.
Oh yeah.
Alex recent. Like, I love the story, and I just want to make some non sequitur about that. But I noticed that, and just I mean, that was a formative band for myself and probably for some of you. So yeah, that's cool. I wish I had that one.
So our last scheduled reader of the night is Hestia. We have plenty of time. It's only 8:40. We had short pieces today, so we're definitely going to have an open mic after Hestia. If anyone wants to read in the open mic, just put something in the chat or just let us know when Hestia is done reading. Okay. Hestia, you.
Hey. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Sorry, just quick question. I know this piece is still a work in progress. Do you want me to refrain from posting the link on Twitter?
Yeah, I don't mind you posting in the chat for others to follow along, but this is something that, for the majority of people, I would kind of like to keep a surprise for whatever it's done.
Yeah, that makes sense. So I'll probably put a shout out to you on Twitter, but I won't include the link.
Okay. Yeah, that works. So this piece, I got no fucking idea what it is at the moment. It is something that I kind of just started writing like 2 hours ago, and I don't know. It doesn't have a name, but I'm gonna start reading it now. This piece is everything from a confession to mentally ill pontification to confused and schizophrenic ramblings and other stuff too, probably. I don't know. You judge it for yourself, I guess. I'm just a dumb faggot anyways. If you stand still long enough in one spot, you can see how reality curves around each one of us. Not in a true physical sense, but a perceivable sense, the deep underlying human connection within us all. Maybe it's interlinked souls or universal unconscious consciousness, whatever you want to call it. We're all connected. The most meek of individuals is equal to the apex of humanity. When our mortal coil is exercised, skin turns to water. Blood runs thin, bones dissipate into ash. Everything that makes us something unique is pulled apart by the hands of God. We are reduced to a primordial zero, returned to an underlying oneness within God's embrace. Ashes to dust, dust to ashes, human to inhuman, saint to sinner, pervert to virgin, abomination to blessing. We are all in none, nothing in all. I don't know why I'm writing these words or possibly reading them to you. Maybe it's some deep desire to be greater than I am, something more than a deeply mentally ill faggot degenerate with an inferiority complex, but also inversely a massive fucking pride in myself. It could be an attempt to communicate the mess in my head, how it feels like at times my perception isn't a perfect frame to frame like some movie you would see in a cinema. It's rather like if in between every frame someone spliced in something. Like those comedy movies where they put a pic of their dick as one of the frames. Just long enough for some people to register its existence, but not long enough for anyone to gaze deep into it, to analyze it. God, this writing structure is all over the place. Well, anyways, back to me being way too open about myself and my desires. I remember back when I was 15, there was this guy I really wanted to fuck in high school. I didn't think of it as gay because, well, I'm not some kind of faggot, right? He just had nice hips, firm ass, flat chest, nice thighs, soft, pouty lips. Everything I liked in a girl. He wasn't one. I would try to rationalize it as just a one-off thing, even when I was rubbing my dick raw with how much I jacked off fantasizing about him. I wish I could have had my first time with him. I wish I could have accepted that I was a faggot back then. Kind of fucked up to write about, wanting to fuck him, but he won't ever know about it. Then when I was 17, I first started to really think deeply into who I am, what I am, etc. I never really had a chance to think of all that shit until then, be it due to actively being raped and beaten most days from the age of 4 to 14, or the aftermath of my abuser leaving my life and everything shattering. Although he had treated me horribly, he'd given my life a sick and twisted meaning. I knew what I was and who I was back then. I didn't have to think for myself. I didn't have to do any introspection. I was a dog. There was no need to think about if I wanted to do something. I never even thought about saying no. I was an obedient dog. He said jump, I went woof and then jumped. He said go to the basement, I went to the basement and let him do what he wanted with me. I still screamed at times, but that was just involuntary as me listening to his orders. I may not have really been human or alive or whatever, but I wasn't having an omnipresent identity crisis. Sure, I tried to kill myself every other week, but that was just part of the game we played, really. Then he left, and a void formed inside of me, one that I had no idea how to fill, as it was a monster I'd never met before. Most people start trying to figure out who they are around the age of 12. They experiment with many different things in order to see what sticks. I just tried pretending my lack of a sense of self didn't exist, but that just led to me going to a psych ward. I tried drugs, but that just led to overdosing on Xanax. Never really wanted to know who I was or if I was alive until last year, when after a mental breakdown where I killed myself mentally and constructed a new self, the self that found faith again and accepted the love of God, the new me had finally found something for me to center myself to, something to hold me together long enough that I finally had time to learn who I was outside of just some sex object or an empty hole in existence. And that's all I have done so far, but yeah.
That was brutal. I really like, I guess like isn't like the right word to use here, but I have a real interest in like deeply introspective pieces that explore like human suffering, especially human suffering like from the perspective of someone who is, I don't know if the like depersonalization is the right like psychological term to use, but the process that you described there, like the process of separating like the self from the self, like through trauma is really, it's like, it's something that I know that I've done to some small degree at moments in my life when I was really feeling like, you know, when I was in a particularly dark place, but it really, it's like such a deeply upsetting and like psychologically fascinating like phenomenon, our ability to like really draw like a clear like line of demarcation inside of ourselves and like separate ourselves from ourselves. I don't know, it was a really good piece, really, and I think you really have something there, you know. I think it could turn into something like really fucking effective.
Thank you. I was worried it would kind of come off as like some pseudo bullshit, like uh, fucking just, I don't know, nothing creative or something, but I'm glad that it actually had the intended effect, at least with what I have written.
Yeah, I think the absolute like frankness of it keeps it from um slipping into that like diary entry territory, you know. I think like the unequivocal, like uncompromising honesty with which like it's exploring that psychological phenomenon really like separates it from something, you know. There's like no hint of like self-delusion there. Yeah, yeah.
I'm
As,
wondering, have
sorry,
you,
Josh.
sorry, no, sorry. Yeah, no, sorry.
No, it's all, I was just gonna ramble.
Oh, no, because actually I really like this as well, and I understand the concern about authors' concern about where it might have gone, but I'm curious whether he's read James Purdy before.
I haven't, no.
Yeah, that's someone who I know William said like that it was a brutal narrative, and along those lines, just James Purdy it reminded me of James Purdy, and in a good way. So the concerns that you had expressed earlier, I was gonna say shouldn't be, and if you need, not that you need, but if an example of it not being a concern is James Purdy. That was all.
I just want to say too, Hesse, I love this piece also, but one thing I thought it did really, really well that I don't think I've seen in a lot of other media is connect the source of trauma leaving with a whole then forming. And I thought that was really powerful because it complicates the relationship between the abused, and going forward, because there's almost a kind of love in that. It's just, yeah.
I mean, yeah, that was definitely something like one thing that I've noticed in a lot of other media when they try to depict abusive relationships or someone with trauma is the person almost always views it as a like fully negative thing, right? But that's just not reality. Be it an abusive romantic relationship, right? Like you still have those moments where you think about like the good things that happened, right? Like, oh, I remember that they got me this one birthday gift and they were really, really sweet, or the sex was great, or whatever the fuck, right? And like I don't know why the fuck we do it, right? I don't know why I do it with like being raped as a child, like, but like it's just a thing, and I feel like I don't know. I think we need more traumatized people writing things because they can actually like talk about subjects from a real sense and not just feel like tokenization. Ooh, we have this gay character who was abused as a kid. Ooh, like.
Yeah, absolutely. I strongly agree with you on that last point. The need to, I think that I'm not going to, I'm going to avoid ranting about anything, but I think that there's a real incentive in like quote unquote literature today, and I think it's very strongly like linked to the like the way that like young adult fiction has this industry in a stranglehold, but to have like, I hate to say it, but like cute stories about trauma, right? Like cute stories about survival that really don't deal with like deal frankly with the abject fucking horror of it, to be honest.
Yeah. Thank you everyone for like I don't know, being nice as always. I haven't read in a bit, but or written in a bit, so thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for reading. So that's all of our scheduled readers. Rudy, as usual, I have not been paying attention to the chat. Do we know, has anyone volunteered to read for the open mic?
I haven't seen anybody yet.
Does anyone want to read during the open mic? Oh, Josh will. Okay, Josh. And Sam, it looks like Sam would like to too. So Josh, you can go, and then after that, Sam.
Sure. This is actually something that's oh geez, William, you'll know what it's about. The situation, that was a bit of drama. All the all the charges were, so the thing is with convictions, of course, like the whole problem with the justice system is that legitimate cases aren't convicted, right? But in my case, the Crown, which I don't think in the States you have the Crown, but it's basically like the government waived it before going to trial. And they don't like to do that typically because they would rather make a judge make a choice. Because in these controversial cases, they don't want to be, but they ruled it to be so insane. So I started writing a poem since I had a terrible thing happen to me. And then built on it. And this is about that experience, which I know, William, you'll know more than others know about it, and it's, I think as it is going to be the conclusion to the book that I hope to have published. Obituary. There are fragments of you here, like the can of tomato paste that came in the meal kit that you brought over here one night. It wasn't a good night, but it was a night with you. So now it's part of our mythology. something I'd like to index. And in my shower drain, your hair is tangled around the chain for the tub stopper, stubborn debris. And I still haven't realized the skate shoes I was wearing when you lied and had me arrested. The cops unlaced them before putting me in a holding cell for an hour or two. I guess it was to prevent me from killing myself, but the joke's on them. I take the subway ads that call suicide a preventable tragedy as a challenge. Either way, I wore the shoes home that night, unlaced on July 7th, 2020, when it felt like I could just walk forever, and I wanted to. And it's October 6th now, and rock legend Eddie Van Halen has died. I've been thinking about using that headline as a non sequitur in a poem ever since the news of his death broke earlier today. There are lots of articles coming out about all about how rock legend Eddie Van Halen has died. And I think that the end of whatever it is we had deserves at least as much attention, at least as many articles as there are about how rock legend Eddie Van Halen has died. And journalists should be accosting us for interviews to ask each of us about the other. I'd say she's a bitch. You'd say he's an alcoholic. And those would be fragments too. And that's it's it's not quite done maybe, but
That was really good. I love the like contrast between like really banal shit and like the big stuff, right? And this like I love that, like I mentioned this in the chat, but I really love the transition from the focus on the skate shoes to the false arrest. Like the whiplash of that moment where you have this kind of moment of like that seems like it's setting up the typical kind of poetic like reflection on an object thing, and then boom, you're thrown in fucking jail. And that movement there is like so good. Like that's awesome. And then what you do at the end, like the contrast between the death of Van Halen and the petty awful bullshit of the relationship, that's really good too.
well, thanks a lot. That's why I brought it here, because I felt like at least it would have an audience that might understand. And I'm working on it as I'm working through. I mean, I got to get a therapist because of that whole thing. But yeah, so thanks for that.
Yeah, no, that was great. Sam is up next, and then I saw Jane in the chat. Did I miss anyone, Rudy?
I think that's all that I saw too.
Cool. Sam, it's all yours. And I think you've got a new draft of a piece that you read. Was it last week or a couple of weeks ago?
It was like 3 weeks ago.
I have no sense of time anymore. All right, it's all yours.
This is called A Dentist Most Terribly Punished. Ask them questions with your hands in their mouths was all it took. A joke suggestion from a colleague. It took your entire life so far to get here. Numerous all-nighters were on top of your course load. You had NCAT and TDAT practice exams, extracurricular practice courses, Habitat for Humanity volunteering, Sunday school teaching, etc., all while maintaining a pristine driving and social record. Your resume undervalued you simply because that by representing you, who are more than pristine, you were reduced to a mere representation by it. You would have been accepted to any competitive research or medical or nursing related graduate program you deemed worthy of your application. Dentistry made sense. You are a musician after all, stable, articulate hands guided by a stable, articulate man from a stable, unconditionally loving family embedded in a stable, unconditionally self-embedded community and church. Hands that are cool in uncomfortable spaces. Hands that have large demands placed on them each time you, the one that guides those hands, picks up a guitar or mandolin or ukulele or violin, or any stringed instrument. Hands that are tools. Hands that can certainly be relied upon to accomplish a task as simple as pulling out a tooth or putting a fake tooth where it's supposed to go. Again, guided by a mind that is certainly able to foreground the knowledge of where those hands can and cannot cut with a scalpel at all times. Hands that people trust to be inside their mouths when they are fully conscious or under the needle. Hands that got you through dental school and then guided you through your additional masters in periodontology with a dancer's leading grace. Ask them questions when you're checking their gums, he said. You were in a study group. You sat with it, unknowingly, for years. When one day you asked, "How are the kids?" "They're doing well." "Please don't talk. It makes my job harder." The lamplight dotted their pupils. Their eyebrows sharpened to a V for a moment, then inverted, before finally relaxing. A look of anger that dissolved into helpless confusion and then defeat as their face reflectively congealed around your left index and left thumb, which were placed in such a manner as to enable full view of their top right canine and lower right bicuspid. A fit of laughter came over you that could only be suppressed by letting your face crack behind your mask, to a look of open-mouthed, psychotic glee. Thank God for the mask. You were hiding in your office, laughing almost silently and out of breath, when your assistant came to inform you of a cancellation. Thank God. You told her you were doing lumbar stretches when she saw you on the floor, and that you were going to take lunch. Your mask cracked again right as the door closed. Your higher motor and emotional functions either suppressed by or simply being redirected towards the full experience of this weird, meta-ironic, gleefully destructive joy. You had barely gotten through the standard operating procedure, which incidentally was typed up from boilerplate by that same assistant for all new hires to read and memorize. The rest of your workday passed without incident. It wasn't until night that the guilt came. This had been a total abuse of your privilege as a medical professional. An intentional abuse, evident even to your most naive moral senses. Until now, most nights you slept with greed, with thirst, parched and exhausted from your day and unbothered by any minor quips of your conscience. Until now, tonight you dreamt of your place in the universe. Tonight your consciousness and your conscience, i.e. your naive moral sense, held the reins, and we're going to guide those typically loosely related, easily forgotten nighttime images in a way that could only be described as an emotional ass-fucking. You saw the clockwork universe, the inner workings of it built with a precision that in regards to sig figs or zeros or decimal places that were factored into each calculation by whatever deity that designed it, could only be ballpark represented by transcendental numbers. Everything rule-bound and non-contradictory, and even non-contrary, a best of all possible realities up until you zoomed out from yourself in bed and saw everything. 30 years, 30 rotations on a tiny blue dot, around a less tiny yellow dot, around a less tiny hole in space-time, around an even less tiny hole in space-time, the most significant part of which was you, in verse with your size. You who, free-willed yet informed by your moral intuition, decided to ignore that information and intentionally knock all of that ever so slightly off its axis, entailing consequences more and more dire the more you projected it into the future. Since then, every day, you have done this. You justified it. It was too late to go back now, after all. At first, it was 1 patient a day, then 2, then 3, and now it is every single one. Now every patient that comes into your office gets asked a small talk question with your hands in their mouth. Then you condescendingly request that they not speak while you are operating, implying that it is simple decency and common courtesy by the tone of your voice, and imply they are stupid for even reflexively attempting to try. Then you spend 5 to 10 minutes in your office laughing silently and hysterically to yourself. You have no clue how to explain this to anyone. You can't reach out to your wife, your kids, or your colleagues. You try substituting this addiction for one people will understand, one you can explain, that people might actually feel sorry for and find tragic, instead of pathetically esoteric, or an ironic affirmation of an annoying stereotype that all dental surgeons and hygienists of proper professional discipline work so hard to eliminate. You betrayed your colleagues too. The lazy pharmacist assistant is easy to locate. You already knew them. You spend 3 hours looking at the prescription pad before writing your signature, prescribing, quote, your wife, unquote, 30 milligrams of Oxycontin for a toothache, a ridiculous amount, as if you wanted to get caught, but you didn't. 1 week later, you throw the medication in the trash, as all it does is make you fall into an unrestful sleep and wake up woozy. You don't even have the literal stomach or liver or whatever required to get yourself physically addicted to one of, if not the most, habit-forming drugs ever made. A type of drug that is so appealing and just good feeling and anxiety and pain reducing that 47,000 people a year in the United States literally kill themselves using it. It's so good. You are blessed with a lack of appetite for painkillers that most addicts would murder for. And this doesn't comfort you or relieve you at all. It makes your situation seem even more uniquely yours. You've never felt so alone, and are immediately back to asking your patients questions with your hands in their mouths, cataloging their reactions in photographic detail, hysterically laughing in your office until the next patient, then doing it again to the next one, and again to the next one, and the next. The feeling of guilt doesn't settle in until around 7 p.m. each night. The darkening sky alters your mood, or maybe better represents it. Your heart rate increases as activity winds down. You recall each face in reverse order, from the most recent to the very first, and imagine them also recalling the incident of malpractice, now that their day is also winding down and they have time to mentally file the day's events like you. Your actions, previously suppressed by whatever events of the day took precedence, now precipitate in their mind. But maybe they haven't yet figured it out that you do it to all your patients. You imagine two of them in conversation, hiding a mutual embarrassment from one another at your violation of their trust, until it's accidentally broached. You too? They then investigate the rest of your clientele, perhaps through subverting your firewall and downloading your catalog of requisitions, or maybe from simple word of mouth or an ad in the paper. Within a week, hundreds have banded together and are either filing a class action lawsuit against you or have formed a lynch mob and are at your front door. The respective scenarios end with you losing your practice, divorced, homeless, or torn to pieces by your mob mentality possessed patients. In both scenarios, your name goes down in all dental school textbooks and all textbooks related to healthcare ethics, and is used as an adjective for this type of abuse and malpractice. Both scenarios in your mind are totally reasonable and justified. It is far too late to turn back. There's nothing you can do to appease the people that you've done irreparable mental harm to already. A list that now ranks in the hundreds. You can only keep going. The situation is binary. Tonight's nightmare concludes something for you. You're in an office, strapped to one of the GD 350D dental chair unit with light and monitor, all light, GD 350D dental chair units with light and monitor, all lights off except for the lamp above your face, which has been modified to reach luminescence far past what you believe to be the maximum brightness setting. Your patients slowly file in out of the Vanta black darkness, each with a GD 350D dental chair lamp floating just above of and in front of their heads, alternating between LED and black light. Hanging from their faces, almost spider-like in its attachment, are one or two detached latex gloved hands, stretching their mouths to the exact proportion that you had manipulated their faces to when you violated and scarred them and destroyed any possibility of this world being the best of all possible worlds in. When when you ask them. Some drool. They are silent, then form 2 lines circling through your office, approaching either side of your chair, each sticking their gloved hands in your mouth and manipulating it in a way where you blubber, "I don't know," when they cheerfully ask you the following question for the rest of all of your nights. What do you think it's going to be like when you are burning in hell?
Uh, that I think I said first of all, like, this feels so much more like complete than the previous draft that you read. Secondly, I'm really sad that our death spiral theme has already come and gone, because I love the absolute moral tailspin of this piece. Like, from the tiny little trespass, like the most innocuous fucking trespass you can imagine, to like him literally, at least in his mind, burning in hell. Like, that's so incredible. Like, that's the entire moral universe there, and it's so hilarious, the journey he takes. I think the moment I really love, though, is after he does it for the first time and he goes home and he's lying in bed, and it's like this like very meticulously structured guy has his first real like moment of moral clarity. And like that awareness, instead of like we imagine like, oh well, that drives you to be a better person, but instead like it becomes like his moment of damnation. Like, that moment of moral clarity is like what makes it so like irresistible to him. And I love that, because it feels more true to life.
Yeah, I feel like that's a moment he's very uptight, and then that's the first moment he feels freedom is asking the patient questions with it, and just his overreaction to it.
I've got some like serious dental trauma from getting like 8 teeth pulled as a very young child. So like all the images of fucking dentistry really like hit me in a weird place. I'm so glad you expanded on what you read a few weeks ago. It's so good.
Yeah, it's so fucking good.
Did you have the deaths total of the opioids in there before?
Yeah, 47. No, I didn't have it.
Okay.
No, I added that.
I noticed that
I
this
just
time. I
Googled
really
it.
liked. I really like that detail of someone being so stoic or whatever it is that they can't be affected by something that 47,000 people a year will kill themselves for. It's so good. That was
Like I said something in the chat about it, but the dental light, like everyone who's been to the dentist has had that moment where you're laying there and you're like, oh, that fucking light is just awful in my face or whatever. And you point out like, no, this is that, but it's worse. It's just like above and beyond that one little thing that everyone already fucking hates. It's good shit, man.
Totally
I
right.
don't know if you think it's kind of like what cyber writer Anton Chekhov
Cyber writer, yes.
was trying to get at with his cherry, was it the Cherry Orchard? Seminal cyber writing piece, of course. But no, I actually am mortified of that's visceral for me. So I just wanted to comment again. I feel like I don't have very good like literary comments on these things, but I felt this story viscerally via a fear of like the dentist and stuff, and that was very like, yeah. So I just also wanted to just comment on how I felt this story. And is this a working draft, or because I heard from William that there was a previous draft? Is this the final draft? Are you going to work more on it? Is this are you sending it out now?
It's a working draft. I'm gonna try and get like 6 things about this length and then start sending things out and rotating through them.
Yeah, no, just I felt it already. So I think we're all fans.
Good.
Yeah, it's fucking awesome. Jane, are you with us still, Jane? I think I see you in the participants list.
Yeah, I'm still here.
Awesome. So you have a piece to share with us?
Yeah, I've got an excerpt from a longer thing I've been working on. Do it up in Google Docs quick. I'll toss it in the chat.
Sweet, take it away.
I haven't practiced this at all, and I fingers crossed I don't trip over it too much, but yeah, here we go. After go back, we proceed, so it's next year. Another one, teacher, would assign stuffing pages, but be different. A rather seeming latter hippie-type man was being this man. He had a large build and bald head, plus a button or two undone on his blue formal shirts at the top. Of course, a white undershirt under it to catch this would-be error. He taught school, for sake. He had some humor like the teacher, first, and also some serious approach at the level of the woman, third, but he had the rotten skin of neither of these two types on those things. In Mr. Ebb, the combination wasn't pleasant. This man's name was Mr. Ebb, and each kid would had him year after the bird woman. June did. He was a nice and had fondness for music. Some days asked people to share music they liked. This was the kind of thing to make kids like a teacher, but however, it was clear it didn't just do it for that. It was clear of reasoning having reason. Mr. Ebb liked music. He also taught pages from the New Testament, mostly. June learned these things and forgot them, in the case the most. Ebb mostly emphasized the fact that Jesus equaled love. In fact, that take was a rare in that building, which school. It didn't seem like it should be rare, but it was. Anybody gone through an aspect of the system knows, and anybody feel that with indignance won't shut up about. The next year, last one, Catholic kids had confirmation. This was a step where the kids got deconfirmed. It would be a terrible time to be becoming an atheist. Honestly, June was becoming an atheist. She even took confession and said, I don't believe in God, I think. The priest probably says she should pray in some numbered amount. But June had a family and anxiety, so did Confirmed. For those not knowing, the whole thing's a process. Anyway, June went doing things in church basement. This was where a solemn man taught numbered virtues that were supposed to be virtuous. The man was a priest. Actually, these were virtuous, just the whole thing was corny. Also, the kids were allowed to take new middle names. At this point, June didn't take that as valuable, except it was kind of fun to riff upon among with friends. She did with friends, and at good times and boring ones. She didn't pay attention then to virtues, but she had some. Faith in the shape of a dove, valued incendiary art in the shape of dove, everything fleeting in the shape of a dove, the way this kisses in the shape of a dove. As a factor of all of these, she also had to choose someone as a sponsor, a person to guide her. The person she chose, the sponsor she did, as her select, was Mr. Ebb. They met for a meeting and did it in a coffee shop. Because it was contemporary life, there was a folder. Mr. Ebb picked the folder up with hand and grimaced. He joked, I hope you know I'm not subjecting this to either of us. In exchange, neither of us will be the people who have gotten subjected to it. He and June had a nice chat that one time. They had nice chats other times, but not for this purpose. They talked about Andrews Lloyd Webber and Jesus, and trying to talk to God on regular. Mr. Ebb had done this, both aspired. He told a funny anecdote when talked about running, and then time was run out. This despite the fact they didn't have a timer. Time passed, and there was ceremony, church. He has put a nail deeply in his palms. Palms they waved at him. We refuse to give puns irony. Nails are a thing we can fixate on. When the flesh rips, I wish that he could give me his infection. At the end of it, for sentimental gift, the thing he gave June, wrapped, was more pages for stuffing. Not an assignment, lest you count a gift as that, and cynicism might. It, the auto-written story of the folk singin' Dylan. June could unwrap it then do smiling, but not with presence his. In hindsight, she'd eventual that it could have read a joke, like, look at how, June, you are painful and obvious. Even if June had seen herself being obvious via that, she was so dumb she'd have taken it a good thing. But if Mr. Ebb meant it as seemed that it seemed like good thing, Mr. Ebb had a side not quite sincere, but he was quite sincere. How no places you could skewer yourself on. My final offer is a nickel for 3. The fact that nobody drives me that bargain, sugar plus you, are 2 reasons I'd leave. Here's an example June would give, if made, about the not side. Just noting, the folk singing Dylan was a guy who seemed to have access to slips. On a day in Mr. Ebb's class, Mr. Ebb joked, a question I will giving is, would kill a wise man? I promise pro benefit. It would mean no more war. The class just kind of divided in half. Explicitly, the reason it did was he said, do that. The one half was saying, I guess I don't like killing guys. The other half was saying things, and June was in it, saying things. Generally, the arguments just went this route. I'm rather the fan of no war. June thought this was decent, but some first-sighters said how God told them, verging on explicit, don't do kill. Besides, she was full of herself and needed hide the logic. At a certain length of time, she'd do this speak. Listen, the way that see I would like see it how can you worry about being in hell? I mean, war causes people in hell. I mean, war is that thing with guys killing guys. It seems that it doesn't matter answer the right one, by God's eyes, but rather to do good for the others. Half joke. Honestly, none of us are acting like we believe in heaven. Further, don't focus on the wise man. Focus on the path of souls, yours but more souls others too. She wanted sound terrible, etymological sense. Didn't. After some days down debate, Mr. Ebb said, done. I think it's planned I would revealing. Look, you all believe I'd magical thought you. An interval he gave one chuckle of one joke. But here is the missing inner logic, because story is logical. The wise man knew how to stop bombs. If dead, those drop bombs. Now everyone is dead. Logical process, there is no doing war. At this point, the whole crowd seemed given. That's conclusion. Nobody felt like pressing things. Mr. Ebb not even bothering to tell side they were wrong. Just seemed implied. Seemed vague of a gotcha. There seemed to be no limit to amount person could do sardonic. I went down in it with a fortune code, camped out arrangements in a pretty girl's hand. I thought I'd like to take their place, but Jack and Queen jealous. They went tarot fully, sworn to giving death or lose my cash. Mr. Ebb would later become him with cancer, then his cadaver. June would hear a third hand, feel detached from it and bleak. By that point, she'd be a ways out from the school. At this point, she was still, unambiguously, mired in it. In some ways, she was just so mired in her life back then. Another pod was moving so fast through all structures. This other pod could barely catch a detail for the cyclone, and the close to holding on she managed was cutting out those slits. There were people in Mr. Ebb's class, none, that June felt any crush on, just a few toads felt hormones, and one played a song in class that June found too pretty. June played it on playlists made of music on her once few times. The copings of this anecdote fell down as insignificance, and yet June remembered more than Mr. Teaching's Ebb New Testament. This seems, structurally, a postulate in gratitude. She did not notice some details for the cyclone. June would finally read the drift in after years of her life. This would be while Mr. Ebb was in the hospital, while June knew. She would not do convention, polite contact gift giver. Let them know you're giving yourself the gift deferred from them laughed at. Eraser and June just enjoyed the book somewhat. This seemed, structurally, a postulate in gratitude. June took the postulates and gratitudes to cut an out attempt from burst cut outer skin and merge out corpse the corpse of God. She told a priest in booth, I think that now I don't believe this God. This was before or after June's confirmed, approximately. Not within hours, more that the range was within weeks or months. The detail uncleared while she moved fast. Alas, June few hormoned. June was in direction of become a different life. Mr. Ebb directioned in cold until dead. June emerged from corpse of God, but never bothered not to leave June's left foot in it. She did not contact Mr. Him about a health or book. Her next life looked brilliant, little wine red on the shading these omissions. She was drunk, June was drunk, June was drunk and drunk. And that's the end of that section.
I really like the absurd, almost like mathematical dialect that you've constructed for this piece. It the whole time through I was thinking of like Lewis Carroll, although that's not a perfect comparison. But I really like the way that constructed dialect underscores like the as someone who grew up in the Catholic Church and who knows this this procedure, like who knows Sunday school, who knows confirmation and all that through and through, like that silly dialect really underscores the absolute absurdity of the things that you're like taught in Sunday school, right? And I know that was great.
Thanks. Yeah, I really wanted to come up with a kind of cartoon style to I don't know, give a sense of how being a kid feels, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. It was hilarious. It was really funny. Um, and Rudy, is anyone else signed up to read? Thank you, Jane. Thank you very much for reading.
Nope, not that I have seen.
Oh, okay. Sorry, Jane, did I cut you off? It looked like you were going to say something. I feel bad if I kind of...
Oh no, I just said thanks for doing this, Asalis.
Oh, yeah, thank you. So, sorry, my sleep deprivation is hitting extra hard right now. Rudy, you said no one else had signed up to read?
Nope, nobody else.
Is there anyone?
Oh, actually,
Oh, sorry.
looks like Sam wants to read the Cyber Writing Manifesto.
Oh, that, you know what? We should close out with your cyber writing manifesto. Do we have anyone else who would like to read tonight? If not, we'll close with Sam's very important cyber writing.
I'm here for it. I want to hear it. This is the voice of a generation. So let's hear it.
Yeah.
Looks like Jake has a poem.
Oh yeah, sure. All yours, Jake.
Thanks. I wrote this the other day, and I've been trying to find a place to get it placed, but it just keeps getting rejected.
Well, is it by like cyber outlets? Because
yeah, that's the I think I just needs the right home. So it's just like, I don't know. I guess I'm doing this for feedback. Like if anybody has any feedback on it, then I could alter it.
Okay, because honestly, I'm considering launching a cyber writing kind of journal.
Okay.
Mix Cybers maybe, or I don't know what the name yet, but I might. And if it's cyber writing, I'm into it. So sorry, just yes.
Yeah, no. Well, I mean, while I'm familiar with cyber writing, I don't know if
who isn't.
You're right. It's ubiquitous at this point, but I don't know if this qualifies as it or not. I'm too close to the piece to really see it. I'm staring at the bark of the piece instead of the forest. So I need an outside perspective on it.
Let's harvest this. Let's harvest this fucking cyber writing.
So if we could all just get like 3 seconds of silence so I can get into it. This piece is titled The First 48 Seconds of Bulls on Parade by Rage Against the Machine by Jake Blackwood. Tick, ba-doom, bop, ba-doom, bop, ba-doom, 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 ba-doom, bop, ba-doom, bop, ba-doom. Wow, wow, wicka, wow, wow, wicka, 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 wow, wow, wicka, wow, wow, wicka, 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 wow, wow, wicka, wow, wow, wicka, 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 wow, wow, wicka, wow, wow. Come with it now. Wow, wow, wicka, wow, 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 wicka, wow, wow. Come with it now. Wow, wow, wicka, wow, wow. Wow, wow, wicka, wow, wow. End. Thank you.
That was really good. That was fantastic. I think that's what I think cyber writing needs to exemplify.
Yeah, I don't even know what to say, man. That was fucking profound.
That really is, I think, what academics 100 years from now will be talking about when they talk about cyber writing and what it means and what it feels like. And I just think you've completely captured that in a timeless way. I'm left speaking.
Yeah, this is a seminal moment. That's what this is.
I really appreciate it. I had to, it was short, but that piece was a journey for me because when I wrote it originally, it was kind of this, I had to reframe how I look at not only music, but writing. And I guess that's where it does fall within cyber writing, the transitional nature of the form, in that I took sound, music and had to.
And you made it words.
Yeah, and I made it words, but then through those words, the onomatopoeia became an instrument in and of itself. And at that point, am I cyber writing Zach De La Rocha? I don't know. Maybe.
Maybe.
But I'm not the one to say that, right? I gotta just let the piece speak for itself. I'm feeling really vulnerable right now. I hope everyone.
No, but it could have gone so many different ways. Because it could have been like, bow, wow, whoop. You didn't do that. You didn't do the high notes, right? Like, it could have gone so many ways.
Yeah, you really got the framework of how I remembered experiencing the song before I experienced your poem. How I remembered experiencing the song before I listened to your version of the song. Really well.
That's really
I think
what I
part of it is that it's inherently a spoken word piece. It's part of the oral neo tradition, if you will. It doesn't work as words on a page. So much of it is in the performance of it.
Well,
as a lot of cyber writing theorists have posited.
I'm just a little worried that the cyber writing movement is getting too political with this. And as a radical centrist myself, I'm really wondering if the works of a band like Linkin Park or Slipknot that's much more focused on internal issues could help bring us into the internal center of the American spectrum. And, quite potentially have Joe Biden nominate the first cyber writer poet laureate.
Jake Blackwood, cyber writer, poet laureate, 2020.
I just think that is something that cyber writing is going to have to grapple with, this relationship between the centrist Democrats that have been elected. And obviously, like, prior to that, I think cyber writing did flourish under the Trump administration. Like, I think there was nobody really looking, right? And now we have a framework in which things are returning back to normal. And what my question is, what does cyber writing do now? What is the next cyber writing? What is cyber writing with Sleepy Joe? How does that look? Do we have a sense?
I think my take, I've seen, when I'm out around town and everything, at bookstores, all I hear, I see a lot of young people, cyber writing this, cyber writing that, people are talking about it at churches and stuff like that. And I think, in a sense, it's got to feel kind of like, how the, street art or graffiti felt with the the pinnacle height of like Banksy coming forward, to where like housewives are like, oh, I love graffiti or whatever, and meanwhile you've got street level vandals who are still doing it and have been doing it, who aren't getting that recognition. And so there's two ends of that spectrum of mainstream art house, auction house, high society, and then those of us who are kind of out on the fringes. And, I don't know how we reconcile the two ends of that together.
That you actually pose a really good question. I actually hadn't thought about that. I mean, there's so much to think about with cyber writing, right? Because in a way it's so new, but it's so old. Like,
no. I think Sam has a great piece on it, which I'm really looking forward to hear. If he's going to read. I don't know if he is or not, though.
Well, I can.
I
can.
Really,
you guys were having such a good discussion. I didn't want to.
Sam, I'm really sorry to interrupt. I'm really looking forward to hear your piece as well. And I do want to end on your piece, but I just saw Damien enter, and I do want to give him a chance to read if he wants to read something from Fucked Up, since it just went on sale today. It's up to you, Damien. I don't want to put you on the spot here, but I did want to have a chance to give a shout out because I'm really, really looking forward to Fucked Up. And pre-orders just went up today. Oh, Damien, that's okay. I don't want to put you on the spot here.
Did anybody buy Mike Andrzejczyk's book, by the way? They should, if they haven't.
You know, I need to. It's been on my list.
Yes, I was shaming you directly. It's a good poetry book. It's amazing. But yeah, sorry, that's it from me. Cyberider.
You know what?
We get in. I could read now and then.
Yeah,
update
that's what I was just going
part.
to say.
That way I won't have to follow him.
Well, Damien's looking for a piece.
That way I won't have to follow him too. Yeah. So it opens with, hang on. The space occupied by the Cyberwriter is made of non-bound, non-tied elements, floating signifiers whose very identity is open, overdetermined in their articulation in a chain with other elements. Slavoj Žižek. The modes of occasioning, the four causes are at play. Then, within the bringing forth, the cyber, techna, enframes the gestel. Man does not have control over unconcealment itself, in which at any time the actual shows itself or withdraws. Martin Heidegger. Anywhere the German goes, he destroys culture. My writing was never German. I used the language, but it was cyber, although the cattle could not hear it. Friedrich Nietzsche. The pluralism of cyber writing might at times seem dialectical, but it is its most ferocious enemy, Gilles Deleuze. The cyber is false. Theodore Thick Dick Adorno. All these spiritual boomers are incorrect. The cyber is only a state. It is not a process or an event, but a terminus. It is the final stop in what we would term the advancement of, quote, literature, unquote. For literature no longer exists, as literature is now just writing, cyber writing. How could this have happened? Was the postmodern condition not overcome in the past decade by the metamodern condition, with its slight manic sincerity and naivete, replacing the cynicism of the previous age? What about the cathedral, neo-reaction, neoconservative, and neoliberalism? They are all gone, or more accurately, never existed. Our age is now atemporal. What was termed metamodern, the genre's new sincerity and autofiction being cited as examples of, was simply the placental stench of its own stillbirth, or the sounds of its decades-long death rattle. The era gave up the ghost, so to speak, and we are now in a landscape which even the most contemporary hauntologies cannot survey because it is too bright. Many cry out against the sunrise, their eyes having only gazed within the abyss. There is no help for them now. While it is true that the nostalgically labeled genre of cyber writing comes across as hackneyed with its aphoric leitmotifs and its penchant for inversions of traditional narrative form, the interpolative non-structures of our current e-diaspora are precipitated in their highest concentration within it. Mark Fisher. Some of the more illiterate among us, or even pseudo-literate, seem unable to grasp this terminus. Like the idiotic Socrates, or S.G. Phillips, or Fisher, they attempt to find commonality in the most accidental aspects of cyber writing, in hopes that the rest of the web of relations will make itself ready to hand for their aimlessly grasping appendages, and they can make their way in the dark. But it's not dark. The sun has risen and blinded them. If they could see, they would understand that if a single rule could be formed about cyber writing, and what it was, and is, and will become, it would be that it escapes convention. Then that rule would be broken. A coherent structure would then emerge, only to be smashed into atoms. Cyber writing is both the one and the flux. You will step into the same river on as many occasions as you like, but it will be different each time regardless. Of the eternal Kaibra, they lack understanding, both before and after they enter it in its primacy. All comes to be according to it, but they regard their own ignorance. Heraclitus. Many will also try to invoke certain theorists and dialecticians and anti-dialecticians, find a way in which the cyber writing might be penned, a repetition or a repetition of difference, whether it's like jelly or a bucket of shot. They will scour the genre for hours and be given less than nothing. They will project their own sense into it and better grasp themselves from it. This is possibly the beginning of a person's understanding of cyber writing, or the beginnings of their own madness. Deluse might be used, but just as easily might a childhood experience of playing with a puppy, a traumatic memory of war. There are many footholds, and none offer constant grounding, unless they do. Cyber writing is, in a word, rhizomatic, except cyber writing doesn't read theory, except when it does. And even then, it will still make fun of you for using that word, then kick dirt in your face, then apologize, take you out to dinner, and leave you with a check. When you get to your car, your tires will be slashed, but an Uber will then arrive to pick you up. Paid for by who? Cyber writing. Cyber writing will offer you a cigarette when you run out, but it will be an American Spirit if you smoke Marlboros, or a Marlboro if you smoke American Spirits. And if you don't smoke, but drunkenly ask for one, it will be laced with PCP.
Birth of a movement right here, right now.
I feel like cyber writing is all of my girlfriends, my ex-girlfriends. That's what I feel. But that's where it's supposed to feel different for all of us. But yeah. That was iconic. I don't know why the beats. There's so many books about the beats. That's boring. What you've laid out, that's more there's more artistry there than the beats had in a toenail.
Not only more artistry, but more authenticity, which is, I think, what really matters. The
People, no, this is good. This moment is gonna go because this part. Okay, so this part's recorded, right?
Yeah, it is.
We've just recorded not the origins, but near origins of cyber writing.
Yeah, not the conception, but the birth, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, the beats for what?
The placenta. The placenta were I don't know what they do to this. Scrub it. Anyways, the placenta. It's on our hands. We're removing it.
The beats were what, like 5, 6 people at a diner in New York, and we're how many people across the globe right now?
Yeah, we've got to be at least 30 of us, right?
Yeah.
This is.
Okay, okay, Damien. I want to give you a chance.
Tough act to follow, though.
Don't worry, Damien. You missed everything, but you also missed nothing. Yeah.
Say the cyber writer.
So did you find a piece, a section of the book? Oh, well, I think you. No, you're not muted. I can't hear you though. Sorry. No, we're kind of putting you on the spot here. Oh, I think you're the last in line, Damien. I think we're kind of wrapping up. Yeah. maybe you're oh, it says you're not muted, but
Testing.
oh, there we go. There
Oh,
we go.
okay, cool. Let's see here. Let's see. So, wait, let me read what you said about cyber writing. Something about parties in college and drugs. Okay. I don't know if I'm a cyber writer, am I?
Man, I don't know.
There's the
I
side
think
butter in
You
all.
have to
I think
ask, then yes.
I think you're a cyber currently.
I
But
think I'm a deep web writer, personally. Let's see. Okay. This is from this novel that the pre-orders are out today. You can like go on Twitter. I've been spamming it and shit. So yeah, if you want to buy it, that's cool. So I just flipped to some random shit. Impossible to fall asleep, so I sluggishly slide myself to the computer chair and enter my password into the computer. Connor sent me some shitty electronic beat that he made in Ableton, which I open up in FL Studio and mess with before sending it back to him via Skype conversation. His status says that he's away, but he's probably ignoring me. I move my cursor bar around on my desktop for a minute while I try to think of what to do, and then I maximize Google Chrome. A porn video titled "Ebony Bitch Takes 10-inch Satanic Cock" resumes where it left off. I don't remember watching it. The guy in the video isn't 10 inches long. And I don't know how to tell if his penis is really satanic or not. I close the video out, search on a porn site for something else, something a bit tamer and calming, and then I come across some glory hole video where the 60-year-old man sucks off a freshman jock. His cock is about 3.5 inches long. Hard to imagine myself as the guy getting sucked off since I'm bigger than him, but I can at least fantasize about humiliating him over it. The guy on the left has a good technique towards sucking dick, so I'll take some notes from him. And then I realize I'm not even jacking up, so I pull my boxer briefs down to my kneecaps and start spanking my meat. But I need something to listen to that isn't a loop of this somewhat shitty 32-second Detroit techno beat. Okay, no problem. I maximize iTunes, slide it to the right side of the screen, move Chrome to the left so that the video is still playing, and then I click on a random album by Finesse. It doesn't really fit the mood that well, so I've masturbated to stranger music than this. Fuck, I cursed out loud to myself. Are those albums I started downloading earlier finished yet? I open my downloads folder to check to see if the rare drum and bass singles I found are finished. They are, and thank fucking God. New messages from Connor and Snakebite 808. Ignore. The blowjob video is over and automatically play something from my favorites folder. Some 23-minute low-quality video where two pale and skinny guys fuck a frail red-headed girl with a fat zit on her right cheek. They speak in Russian throughout the video and there's no subtitles for me to read. I guess I prefer it that way. One guy licks her pussy while the other guy sucks his dick. Russian guys always have skinny penises and long ball sacks, and Russian girls have small breasts with fat, ripe nipples. My phone buzzes on top of my pillow. It's probably Sherry, so I'm not so sure if I want to get up and stop masturbating to read her text messages. Too lazy, I guess. Last time that I stepped out of my computer chair to answer a text, I ended up tripping over a bunch of Japanese poetry books and hit my jaw at the end of the bed frame. That's some bad voodoo that I'm not going to ever fall for ever again. I paced myself with the masturbation and opened the Skype screen. My friend Dylan from Ohio, also known as Snakebite 808, wants me to send him a picture of my cock. I send him a devil emoticon and tell him that I can't because my webcam isn't hooked up and there's too many wires to fuck around with at this time of the night. He tells me just to use my cell phone. I tell him about the bad voodoo. He doesn't care. At this point, I give in. I carefully rotate my chair in an 80-degree angle, fall over onto my bed, and I turn on my cell phone to read Sherry's message. It's a picture of her spreading her meat wallet. Not bad. I take a handful of pictures of my erect penis and send them to Dylan first. It takes a few minutes to fully send. Sherry texts me another picture of her holding some tinfoil with a bag of heroin hanging from her teeth. I ignore it and hop back over to my computer chair. Dylan messages me back with a picture of his own cock. I ask him if he thinks it's better to take dick pics with my hand at the base or at the bottom of my cock. He says that it doesn't really matter and I shouldn't be self-conscious about my penis, but I'm not. Maybe he's the one that's self-conscious about his cock, but that isn't rational since he's bigger and thicker than me. Maybe he thinks I'm self-conscious about my cock because I'm uncut and he's not. If anything, my penis is the only part of my body that I'm not self-conscious about because every other slab of flesh on my body is meant to represent what I was born to be, a container of trash for mindless sex and torture. Finesse still quietly playing, phone rattling against an empty beer can that Kyle or Connor left in my bed a few days ago. I take my hand off my cock and find myself in some sort of existential crisis. Everyone around me is going to die soon, and it's going to be my fault, and then I'll die too. Fuck. I should probably take my psych meds and double up on the sleeping medication tonight. The Russian porn video glitches up and stops. Maybe the website has a virus or something, or maybe the NSA is trying to shut down my service so that they can collect all my documents. Either way, I can't think, and everything is glitched and fucked and obviously my fault. Before heading to sleep, I edit an Excel spreadsheet that has my exercise routines, and I add what I need to do tomorrow to it with a big reminder to take my morning dose of medication. I leave an album of Monsoon Rain field recordings on after I take my pills and brush my teeth, and even though it's practically the same weather outside, the smell of Sherry's hair is mad inside of my nostrils, and I just hope that doesn't mean I'll have a dream about her. I'd rather dream about what it'll be like to fuck Nigel in the ass. Sweet dreams. It won't be Nigel in it, and it won't be even Sherry. It's always him, and it almost always ends with me dead. Connor aggressively hits the glass pipe as his newly dyed green hair blows around the wind. He exhales out an obnoxious cloud of white smoke and asks me to help him guard the flame of his lighter as if it were a candle in a dust storm. His veins are on the verge of bursting out rivers of blood. I wish he could stop doing this to himself, but I'm implicit in it too. He drops his head down over his handlebars and says, "He fucking did it. I just can't fucking believe it. Doesn't even seem real to me now, but it definitely is." Did what? Who, Xavier? Yeah, Xavier. He exhales more smoke. I don't know how he found out where I live, but he did. When I woke up this morning, I found my cat in the fucking microwave. I had to throw the fucking thing in the dumpster because I knew that if my mom found the cat, she would have me institutionalized in a split second. I just told her that it must have ran away and the microwave seemed to have broken due to some kind of planned obsolescence. I mean, there's no way she could ever believe that someone broke into her house just to kill our cat, but he did it. And now I know that I had to kill him. He throws the glass pipe at a raccoon that passes us by, and then he raises his head to the worsening storm clouds. We stopped 8 miles through our typical path near a church that's just as opalescent as what's left of the snow. Nigel was right about Maryland's sky looking like ocean waves. I feel like I'm crashing into it all right now. I mutter under my breath, "You're right. We should probably kill him. Kill his parents too," he spits. "We have to kill that Illuminati neo-Nazi cat-killing rapist. I don't know how, but maybe I can come up with a plan if I do enough research on the internet or watch some of those CSI shows. We could burn the house down, stage it as a suicide." He unzips his jersey halfway down, sticks a Zippo lighter into his underwear, and pedals out of distance. I have to puke before I can chase after him. I just remembered what Xavier said to me in the locker room. Now I know that's only a matter of time before he ends up trying to rape me. I'm fucked. I've never fought back against anyone in my entire life. I spent all this time sorting pills, looking at pictures of dead bodies, and fucking people to give myself this false idea that I'm in control of myself. But I know that I'm definitely fucked. What the hell was I thinking spewing that bullshit to Connor? Kill the family and burn the house down? That's just another maniacal cum shot fantasy. It's a mistake for me to say shit like that to Connor because I already know that he would probably take it upon himself to try and kill Xavier. He tried to kill his mom before, and he has the rage of a wild boar. But he's not as calculative and discreet in his nature of violence. There's no doubt about it that Xavier is already a step ahead of us. I'm sure they already knows exactly how he will kill us and where he will bury our bodies. Yeah, that was just 3 random pages that I flipped to.
I am so looking forward to getting this. I think the pre-orders are supposed to ship on Black Friday, right? Which I think is a pretty appropriate day for the book to come out.
Yeah, and it's Friday the 13th.
Oh shit! Yeah, today is Friday the. Oh
Yeah.
damn!
Honestly,
I'm just
like,
realizing that now at the end of the. Yeah.
I didn't know it was Black Friday. I'm against Amazon and buying things, and
Yeah, well, Black Friday is the 27th, which is the day the book actually should be shipping, I think, according to the page, right? And pre-orders went live on Friday the 13th, so that's pretty cool.
I saw like Kurt, Kurt. I think some of you know Kurt and stuff on Twitter. We've been talking about how like people don't really like represent like it's like every alt-lit writer is like so into like either ironic music like Limp Bizkit or indie rock.
yeah.
And it's very rare that you'll hear someone categorize stuff accurately, like Detroit techno and stuff. So not that that's a definitive thing, but it's just interesting to hear, and it makes me think that maybe there is another connection there. And so yeah, I just wanted to, yeah. And I don't know whether you've noticed that too, but I just think that people write off certain, yeah.
Well, this is I can't believe this is controversial to say, but I really don't like Kanye West.
Yeah.
Or his music.
What?
And a lot of people like
I'm canceling my order.
Especially writers, and I'm just like, what?
Yeah, I know. And
fuck?
writers I love, like Shy Watson. I love her, but her, just let's not ironically like this garbage. Like, and also, making fun of techno. You don't know what techno is. You do, but yeah, it's just interesting to me. So, you know what? You lost an order. You gained one. There.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Yeah. There is like a harsh noise musician in the book too that tours with William Basinski and Kevin Drum. Like, I don't know if those musicians know about that, but oh well, they're gonna have to deal with it.
Yeah.
I didn't ask for their permission.
Yeah.
But yeah.
This is cyberwriting, consent cyberwriting. That is actually going to be one of the topics discussed at the symposium. Consent in a world of cyberwriting.
Oh, yeah.
And so on that note, I think I'm going to call it a night here. As usual, I'm going to keep the Zoom meeting open for a while, but I'll stop the recording now. If you're watching this on YouTube after the fact, we do these readings every Friday, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. Pacific. Thank you so much, Damien, Josh, Derek, Griffin, Jane, everyone who read. I'm forgetting some of the people who read, but thank you everyone who read. This is always so much fun, guys, and I think that's a wrap.